Michael Sanders was laughing so hard he nearly choked on his coffee. "Tell you what," he smirked, wiping a tear from the corner of his eye. "You fix this car, I'll give you the whole damn shop." Across from him stood Natalie Morgan, nervous, steady, but not flinching. She took the keys from Michael's outstretched hand, her fingers trembling. She didn't say a word. She just walked straight toward the Porsche 911 that had baffled his entire elite team for a week. He laughed harder. But what came out of that engine 30 minutes later would wipe the smile off his face for good. Michael Sanders wasn't just any garage owner. At 45, he ran Sanders Performance Garage in Austin, Texas, the holy temple for the wealthiest gearheads in the city. It was where millionaire car collectors sent their Ferraris, Lambos, and McLarens when something went wrong. Floors of imported marble, tools more expensive than some houses, and a glass office that overlooked his empire like a throne. But Michael's true obsession wasn't luxury, it was control. He thrived on power. And his favorite pastime? Humiliating anyone who challenged it, especially women who dared enter what he called a man's arena. "Mr. Sanders," came the receptionist's voice through the intercom. "There's a young woman here. Says she's here for the mechanic position." Michael raised an eyebrow. "A woman? This should be fun. Send her in," he said with a grin sharp enough to cut glass. Natalie Morgan stepped into the office, clutching a neatly prepared resume. She wore spotless workwear and boots that had seen real grease. 28 years old, 5 years of hard-earned experience in back-alley shops that never got a second look, but where she learned everything. "I'm Natalie Morgan," she said calmly. "I'm here for the job." Michael didn't even glance at the paper she held out. He was already scanning her from head to toe with that same predatory smirk. "You," he sneered, "you want to fix $250,000 engines in my shop?" "I have experience," she began, but he cut her off with a laugh loud enough to echo. 5 years changing oil on mom-and-pop Toyotas. That's your resume. Natalie clenched her jaw. "If you read it, you'd see I don't need to read anything," he said, circling her like a shark. "You know how much the cheapest car in this garage costs? $200,000. In your experience?" He paused. "0. Behind the glass wall, 3 of his top mechanics, Patrick, Ethan, and Ryan, had gathered, sipping coffee and chuckling. Michael waved them in like it was a stage show. "We've got entertainment, boys. This young lady thinks she's going to be our new mechanic." The laughter was instant and cruel. "Maybe she's here to give us manicures," Ethan joked. "Or confuse this with a hair salon," Ryan added. Natalie's fists balled at her sides, but her face remained composed. Michael raised a hand for silence. "Let's be gentlemen," he said mockingly. "Natalie here says she's got 5 years of experience." The men chuckled again, already sensing Michael was setting up one of his legendary takedowns. "Well then," Michael continued, "why don't you prove it?" He pointed out the window. "There's a Porsche 911 out there. Been here a week. None of these guys could figure it out. You fix that, and I'll give you more than just a job." He paused, savoring the moment. "I'll make you a partner." The room fell silent. Even the mechanic's smirks faltered. But Michael added with venom, "If you fail, and you will fail, you walk away. For good. Sign a statement that you'll never apply to another serious shop in this city again." Patrick leaned in. "Boss, that engine's brutal. There's no if," Michael snapped. "She's from back-alley shops. This'll be over in minutes." Natalie stood still, eyes locked on the floor for a long breath. Then she looked up. "And if I lose, I give up my career." "You lose everything," Michael said, grinning. "But if you want to humiliate yourself, go ahead." She paused, and then said without blinking, "I accept." The silence that followed was thick. Michael looked rattled for the first time. "I want it in writing," Natalie added, "and I want everyone in the shop present when I work on the car. Oh, Michael chuckled. Now this is going to be delicious. He clapped his hands. Let's give her an audience. 30 minutes later, the entire staff had gathered around the black Porsche in the center of the garage. Folding chairs were brought in, phones were out. It was a modern-day gladiator ring, and Natalie Morgan had just been thrown to the lions. Michael stepped forward like a ring announcer. "Ladies and gentlemen," he bellowed, "in this corner, Natalie Morgan, 5 years of experience changing oil. In that corner, a $300,000 German precision engine that's humiliated my best text for a week straight." Everyone laughed. Everyone except Natalie. She just stared at the car like she already knew its secrets. "Need help opening the hood, sweetheart?" Ethan snorted. Natalie said nothing. She walked slowly around the Porsche, eyes scanning every inch. Not touching, just observing. Her silence made the laughter nervous. "You've got an hour," Michael shouted. "After that, you sign and walk." Natalie finally spoke. "Can I see what's already been tried?" Laughter again. "What, so you can copy us?" Patrick snapped. "No," she said coolly, "so I don't repeat your mistakes. Have you ever been underestimated just because of your background or gender? Share your story below." The laughter had dulled into whispers. Natalie's silence was starting to feel dangerous, like the calm before a thunderstorm. She circled the Porsche again, this time slower. Her fingers never touched the hood. She just looked, studied, noticed things no one else had. Faint scratches on the bolts, a smudge of oil that wasn't there yesterday. The subtle imbalance in how the car was resting on its suspension. Ryan muttered under his breath, "She's just stalling. She has no clue where to start." Michael smirked, but even he was starting to feel something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. Doubt. Then Natalie did something unexpected. She crouched beside the rear wheel and inspected the alignment of the axle, then stood up and opened the hood. No drama. No flair.
Just a clean, confident motion. She reached into her back pocket, pulled out a set of gloves, and slipped them on. Her fingers moved like a pianist about to play a familiar concerto. Patrick leaned to Ethan. What the hell is she doing? Natalie finally spoke, her voice calm and low, but slicing through the air like a blade. "This engine has been tampered with." The room stilled. "What do you mean?" Michael asked, stepping forward. She pointed. "Aftermarket calibration. Whoever touched this last adjusted the fuel injection for track performance, not standard driving. But you've been diagnosing it like it's a factory car. That's why you're getting conflicting readings." Emiliano scoffed. "That's impossible. We ran full diagnostics using factory specs." "And that's the problem," Natalie said, finally making eye contact with Michael. "This isn't a factory problem. It's a high-performance conflict. Someone tuned this engine for competition, and you've been treating it like a lemon." Michael's smirk faltered for the first time. The tension in the room grew thick. Mr. Everett, the oldest and most respected mechanic in the room, stepped forward slowly. "What kind of tuning?" Natalie didn't hesitate. "Reprogrammed ECU. Possibly piggyback systems, but more importantly, the timing is off. Not because it was set wrong, but because the modifications changed the baseline, and no one recalibrated to compensate." Patrick barked a laugh. "That's nonsense. We triple-checked the timing." "With what method?" Natalie asked simply. Patrick paused. "The standard one." "For what model?" she pressed. "For this generation of Porsche? Or the generic method you use for everything else?" Silence. That's when the crowd started to shift. Not physically, but mentally. Something in the air had changed. Michael could feel it. For the first time, the confidence wasn't on his side of the room. Mr. Everett looked intrigued. "How do you know all this?" Natalie straightened up. "I've worked on engines like this before. More than a few times." "Where?" Michael demanded. She hesitated, then replied, "Places where precision matters more than reputation." Michael took a sharp breath. What does that even mean? Natalie walked around to the front of the car. It means I've been in shops where 1/10 of a second could cost a championship, places where there's no time for ego or guesswork, only results. Then she reached into the engine and began disconnecting cables, smoothly, in a pattern no one else recognized. The movements were deliberate, efficient, like muscle memory. No fumbling, no second guesses, just complete control. Annalise whispered, "That's not how we were taught." "She's not guessing," Mr. Everett murmured. "She's confirming what she already knows." Michael stepped forward, rattled. "Where exactly have you worked, Natalie?" She looked at him. Not smug, not angry, just direct. McLaren Development, Williams, Red Bull Racing.
2 seasons working trackside with Max Verstappen's technical crew. The words hit like a grenade in the center of the room. The name alone, Verstappen, was enough to command silence. Even those who didn't watch Formula One knew it. Everyone stood frozen. Patrick's mouth opened, but no words came out. Ethan looked like he might be sick. Ryan took a step back. "That's a lie," Michael whispered. But his voice had no conviction behind it. Natalie reached into her backpack and pulled out a folder. She didn't throw it down or make a show. She simply handed it to Mr. Everett, who opened it and saw photos of her in a Red Bull uniform, her working next to pit crew's engine schematics with her name, credential certifications. She turned back to the Porsche. "This engine isn't broken. It's just misunderstood." Within 20 minutes, she had the car stripped down to its core misalignments. She adjusted the timing curve, manually recalibrated the fuel injection ratios, and reprogrammed the ECU using a software patch she had saved on a flash drive, one she had helped design during her time in competitive motorsport. Michael watched all of it in stunned silence. Every correction she made was like a slap across the face. Each wire reconnected was another piece of his ego falling apart. And then, with everyone holding their breath, Natalie slid into the driver's seat. She didn't even look nervous. She turned the key. The engine didn't just start, it roared. A sound so pure, so balanced, it seemed unreal. The Porsche didn't growl, it sang. 6 cylinders moving in harmony like a symphony, every vibration tuned to perfection. The same car that had sputtered and died for a week now sounded reborn. Gasps filled the garage. People clapped without realizing. Even Patrick took a step back and whispered, "Holy hell!" Michael couldn't move. His hands trembled, his face pale. Natalie stepped out of the car, eyes level. "Your bet, your word." Michael stared at her, then at the Porsche, then at the 20 employees around him, every one of them now looking at her. He opened his mouth, closed it. "I think we need to talk," he finally said. Natalie nodded. "Yes, we do." And in that moment, everyone in the garage knew nothing would ever be the same again. Michael didn't sleep that night. The sound of the Porsche's perfectly tuned engine haunted him in the best and worst way. He'd heard thousands of engines in his life, but nothing like what Natalie had coaxed out of that car. It wasn't just a sound, it was a reckoning. For 20 years, he had built his garage on marble floors, chrome tools, and arrogance. In 30 minutes, Natalie Morgan had dismantled all of that without breaking a sweat. He sat alone in his office long after everyone had gone home. He replayed every moment, her calm voice, the surgical precision of her hands, the deafening silence when she said she'd worked for Red Bull Racing, and the way his team, his loyal, headstrong, cocky team, had looked at her afterward. Not with suspicion or ridicule, with awe, with respect. By morning, he had already printed the contract. When Natalie arrived, her hair was pulled back, her sleeves rolled up, and her gloves tucked into her waistband. She looked like someone who'd already earned the place and knew it. Michael handed her the folder. She flipped through it, then set it on the table. "I want something in writing," she said. "More than partnership, a shared leadership structure. We both have authority, no silent partner nonsense. Decisions are split. You want me in this business? I need to be respected in it." He nodded slowly. "Fair, more than fair." "And the culture," she added. "It has to change. I'm not putting my name on a place that tears people down because they don't look the part." Michael felt that one in his gut. "Agreed." She signed. So did he. In black ink next to each other's names, Sanders Morgan Motorsports was born. The weeks that followed were electric. Natalie didn't walk into the business. She injected life into it. She didn't sit behind a desk. She worked in the bays. She trained. She taught. She noticed things Michael never had. Carlos, the shy tech who could rewire an electrical system blindfolded. Mary, the office assistant with a mechanical engineering degree she'd buried under years of neglect. Louis, the overnight janitor who had once rebuilt his own transmission in a single weekend just for fun. She saw potential where others saw hierarchy, and slowly things began to shift. Michael, to everyone's surprise, was the first to change. He started showing up early not to command, but to learn. He stood beside Natalie with a notepad in hand, asking questions, studying wiring diagrams, listening to explanations he once would have dismissed. He wasn't trying to protect his pride anymore. He was trying to evolve. "You're really doing it," Natalie said to him one morning after he'd spent 2 hours just observing how she handled engine calibration. "You're letting go of who you were." "I have to," he said, "because who I was wouldn't survive in the world you're building." And the world she was building was growing. Word spread. First, it was local racers bringing in their track day cars. Then it was out-of-state rally teams. Emails came from Europe. Manufacturers started asking questions. And then one day, a message from McLaren. They were launching a technical training initiative in the Americas and wanted a U.S.-based partner to lead the program. Michael read the email 3 times before handing it to her. "You did this," he said quietly. "No," Natalie replied. "We did." "But if we're going to say yes, I have a condition." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "They use this shop not just as a symbol, as their base of operations, their real center." He stared at her. "They'll never agree to that." "They already did," she said, pulling out a signed document from her backpack. "I sent a proposal 2 weeks ago. They accepted it yesterday. All they needed was your co-signature." Michael sank into his chair, the same chair where he once laughed at her. The irony was so thick it nearly made him choke. The place he'd built to glorify himself would now become the heart of something much larger, and he couldn't imagine anything better. 3 months later, the transformation was complete. The shop looked different, not because of the new equipment or branded signage, but because of the people.
The smugness was gone. The competition had evolved into collaboration. Even Patrick, Ethan, and Ryan had begun to change. Slowly, then all at once. Patrick approached Michael privately one afternoon. "I was wrong," he said awkwardly, but sincerely. "I didn't just underestimate her. I resented her because I knew deep down she was better, and I hated that I couldn't admit it." Michael nodded. "You've got time to make it right. I want to learn from her, from you. I want to stay, but I want to be worth keeping." He was. All 3 of them were, once they got over themselves. Then came the ceremony. 6 months to the day after Natalie first walked into the shop, Sanders Morgan Motorsports hosted a grand reopening event that would be remembered across the industry. Guests came from everywhere: reporters, engineers, officials, race team reps, even students from technical schools. Cameras lined the walls, but none of that mattered more than the faces in the room. Michael stood on stage and looked out at them. Then he did something no one expected. He handed the mic to Natalie. She didn't give a speech. She gave a reckoning. "I didn't come here to make a point," she began. "I came here looking for a job. That's it. But the moment I walked through those doors, I was told without words that I didn't belong, that this wasn't a place for people like me. She paused, scanned the crowd. But I stayed, not to prove them wrong, but to remind myself I was right to believe in my own worth. Then she looked at Michael. And this man, he made a mistake, a big one. But what he did next was even bigger. He admitted it. He changed. He made room. And because of that, this place isn't just a garage anymore. It's a launching pad for people who've been overlooked, doubted, and dismissed. People like I once was. The applause didn't end quickly, nor did the impact of her words. That same week, McLaren officially announced their new technical academy based out of Austin, Texas, headquartered at Sanders Morgan Motorsports. Natalie was appointed program director. Mary, once a receptionist, was now chief diagnostic engineer. Carlos led electrical systems. Patrick specialized in performance calibration. Michael continued his training under Natalie's guidance, soaking up every lesson like a man reborn. But there was one more surprise. At the end of the event, Michael found Natalie alone in the shop, staring at the Porsche that started it all. "Funny, isn't it?" she said. "I almost walked away that day. The humiliation, the laughter, it cut deep. I almost let them win." "But you didn't," he said. "Why?" She turned to him, eyes clear. "Because I've been silenced before. In motorsport, in school, in meetings. But this time, I had a choice. I could either walk away quietly or let the engine speak for me." And it had, loud and clear. If this story moved you, tell us what part hit you the hardest. Did you ever have to prove yourself when everyone counted you out? If you've ever felt underestimated and still rose above, comment 100 below and share your story. We want to hear from you. Let us know what country you're watching from and how this story made you feel. And if you believe others need to hear Natalie's story, share this video. Someone out there might be waiting for a reason not to give up. Let this be it.